Hello, everyone. Welcome to Know Your Power. It's a new podcast brought to you by the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation. My name's Ron Jamalan. I'm with Attorney Andy Mendiola and Attorney Hazel Gubaton-Lopez. Sorry, Attorney Hazel. I hope I didn't murder your name. But
Yeah, that's correct.
yes, welcome. Welcome our fine lawyers from PEMC. And of course, the first thing that people will ask is, what the hell is PEMC? Anong PEMC? Di ba? Ano yun? Pepsi? PEMC? Ano ba? So, probably just to get to the conversation, because we want to tackle a few things, no? First and foremost, para dun sa mga nakikinig, people who are not in the know when it comes to the power industry. There are so many things going on, no, as far as the cost of electricity is concerned. Hindi siya basta-bastang pwedeng babaan or taasan or meron talaga mga mechanisms that people, kumbaga, that actually control all these different factors that produce electricity, that generate electricity. So we're here with the some of our legal luminaries from PEMC. Attorney Andy, why don't you introduce yourself first? Let them know what you do for the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation.
All right. Hi. Hi, Ron. I'm the Chief Legal Officer of PEMC, and I am the head of the legal department in PEMC. Basically, the legal department is one of the support groups in PEMC. We help our core departments such as of course, our enforcement and compliance office, our market assessment department, and all their concerns, legal issues that need to be resolved. We also spearhead the filing of appropriate cases on behalf and represent PEMC and all the litigation cases and regulatory compliances.
Very interesting. So basically, Attorney Andy, if may problema ang PEMC, if there are things that we need to let's say if we have legal hurdles, you're the first person that comes to the rescue.
Yes, but hopefully won't come to that situation that you're gonna need our help. But yes, that's one of our main purposes.
Main purposes. Now, Attorney Hazel here, on the other hand, heads the enforcement and compliance group. Actually, it's also called the Enforcement and Compliance Office. Tama ba, Attorney Hazel? Is that the way to? Is that the what it stands for? If people hear
Yes,
echo
yeah,
as far as
yes, it's a
okay.
enforcement and compliance office. So basically, we do the monitoring of the WESM members. So pag sinabi natin WESM members, they are the generators, the distribution utilities, the metering service providers. So what we basically do is we monitor their compliance to the different obligations. So yun, we also do the investigation and we do some information education campaign to promote the compliance in the market.
Very interesting. So it's safe to say, though, that since we, before people might be wondering, okay, why is there such a thing as a group that's monitoring or making sure that people are complying, especially the players in the electricity market? We probably need to explain first, Attorney Andy, what WESM is. WESM stands for the people who are watching right now. It's the Wholesale Electricity Spot Market. Attorney Andy, can you explain what that is for people
Okay.
who are not familiar with it?
All right. Well, simply put, it's a centralized venue. That's what they say. No, for buyers and sellers to trade electricity. So electricity is traded as a commodity, and this is where we determine the prices based on the basic principles of demand and supply. So this whole concept of the WESM was created pursuant to the EPIRA, basically stating that this WESM should be composed of the wholesale electricity spot market participants And it will provide for the mechanism for identifying and setting the price of well, yeah, the electricity that's transacted or traded in the market for the quantities transacted under contracts between the sellers and the buyers of electricity. So I hope that's as simple as I
Right.
can explain it.
So, given that information, Attorney Hazel, so you have the WESM, and it's because of the EPIRA. The EPIRA basically is the law that was promulgated
Mhm.
back in 2001. That means, kasi before, Attorney Hazel, can you explain to them how it was before in the 90s? For those who were born during the 90s, we had a power
Oo.
problem here in the Philippines. Attorney Hazel, can you tell
Yes,
them what that
oo.
was? What happened?
Oo, kasi prior to the EPIRA, regulated kasi in the entire power industry. So there are state-owned assets, so less yung participation of the private sector. But nagkaroon tayo ng cry before, so our government pursued the promulgation of the Electric Power Industry Reform Act in 2001. The intention is, of course, to ensure the affordable, reliable electricity to all consumers in the Philippines. So, when the EPIRA was introduced, okay, like nagkaroon ng mga reforms like restructuring, the regulation of the entire industry, and of course, the privatization of the state-owned power generation and transmission assets. So, these reforms were intended to introduce more competition, of course, choices for the consumers, while um, leveling the playing field in the power industry to encourage participation from the private sector naman. So the end goal is to lower the power rates for us to have to ensure yung sufficient capacity, and of course to promote an environment that would protect both the investors and the consumers.
And people should remember Attorney Hazel back in the I was in probably in college when in the 90s. I remember quite fondly how it was before, no, when people were concerned about blackouts or brownouts here in Metro Manila, and it was very
Oh,
frequent. And I think that time people were really clamoring for change, and that's when they actually came up with this, and then eventually in 2001, during the time of GMA, they came up with EPIRA. Just a little background there, just
yeah.
for people, the younger ones who weren't born yet back in the day. We didn't experience the
Oo.
the blackouts. So it
Yes,
got
oo.
worse. No, diba? We were no, we if they didn't do it, siguro baka laki ng problema natin yan. So, Attorney Andy, Attorney Hazel, I just wanna know. So it wasn't really an easy road, no. So as anything that's new, EPIRA came up with the WESM, and of course, part of that is PEMC. What is PEMC's role in all this, Attorney Andy? What do we? What is the role of this company, this non-stock, non-profit company, as far as the EPIRA and the WESM is concerned?
Well, as you know, part ng IPIRA yung pag-establish ng organizational efficiency. It set the obligations and responsibilities of the major players or sectors also in the electric power industry. So the IPIRA paved the way for the establishment of PEMC as then the Autonomous Group Market Operator, the AGMO, yung tinatawag natin. No? And it also provided for the creation of a governing body, the governance arm, which is to take charge of the set of rules that will govern the market. So I think this is basically what links to us, no, as PEMC as a corporation, in our identity as the governance arm of the WESM. So as early as the EPIRA already provided for the establishment of this governance arm. And this leads us to our current role now as well the entity that governs the Western rules and the rules governing the entire market.
Attorney Hazel, would didn't go as smooth as people would want it, diba? Kasi syempre, if there's something new, and especially here, with how things are, primarily politically in our country, and not everything that's been started by government goes out without a hitch. So, Attorney Hayes, can you tell us a bit, what are the challenges that PEMC faced when it began operations back in 2003? Um, Quickly, perhaps, or just the highlights of what went on
Uh, yes,
at
so
this one.
I think the issue was that was raised before was, of course, the identity of the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation, because we know that the board is composed now of it has equitable representation kasi from electric power industry, like the generation, transmission, distribution, and supply. I think the challenge before was, since we transitioned from the, what do you call this, the AGMO. Before, the chairman or the board is, or the secretary of the Department of Energy sits as the chairman of the PEM board. So people got this impression that PEMC, as mentioned by Attorney Andy, which is a private entity, it's a non-stock, non-profit corporation. But given that composition or structure in the board, they got this impression that PEMC is a government-owned controlled corporation. So it
Mm.
has implications in the process because the GOCC also is governed by some standards and laws. And as a private entity, we assert something or the authority that would really or that would effectively execute the mandate of the PEMC as envisioned by the EPIRA, which is to govern the WESM. So yun yung mga naging hurdles natin, that I think that identity of PEMC as a private corporation.
Attorney Andy, do you recall any? Were there cases filed against anybody during this time, or where did we have to go through certain regulatory agencies as far as our existence is concerned, like all
Yes, well,
the?
well, not to talk about the specific cases filed, but this erroneous classification of us, being erroneously tagged as a GOCC had major implications in terms of, let's say, our market fees. Because we're going to be bound by certain laws that are applicable to GOCC. So it really creates a problem for us. Like what Attorney Hazel said, in terms of us being bound by laws that are applicable only to GOCCs, and it also defeats kasi the purpose of the EPIRA, to privatize the WESM. It's something that the government wouldn't do by itself. Kaya siya ginawang uh, or binigay sa isang private entity. So through the initiative of the DOE, yun kasi yung nagpa-complicate eh. For some, that initiative from the DOE to establish the WESM and create this autonomous group market operator was seen as um, uh, parang yun yung basis for us being tagged as GOCC, which is erroneous, no? So to correct that, that's precisely the purpose of the EPIRA, is to privatize this industry and leave it to the sectors, leave it to a private entity to govern it. It's the creation of a self-regulating entity. It's independent from the government who would govern and operate the market. Yun yung trust ng EPIRA when it privatized the WESM. So yun lang, it created this misconception of us being a GOCC, really created a lot of problems. And also to add to the challenges pala, this identity of us being the governance arm has had also been one of PEMC's growing pains after the transition. Because we have, as we have another entity operating the WESM, the market operator, which is the independent electricity market operator of the Philippines. So that leaves a question for some on our existence also. Na parang why is PEMC still there?
Mm.
What is the role of PEMC now that we have transferred the market operations to another entity? So dito it's our chance to introduce PEMC as the governing body of the WESM. That's different from the functions of a market operator within the WESM. So yun then, that's one of the hurdles that PEMC is trying to overcome.
Um, does it really specify the EPIRA that there has to be one or just two entities doing all this work, or to implement what the WSM, you have to have two entities? Because I think the bone of contention basically for some people is that why do we have two entities, the IMOP and the PEMC? For people who are not familiar with the names, IMOP is actually the market operator, and you have PEMC, who's the basically the governance body. So why did they break it into two? What is the rationale behind it, and is it something that is within the bounds of the law?
Yeah. Well, if you look closely, or if one would really study the provisions, particularly Section 30, the one that talks about WESM and the IPIRA, there's also provision there that aside from the creation of the market operator, it talks about. By the way, that's the IPIRA and the implementing rules, because you'll see
Mm.
there as it expounded the basic provisions of the IPIRA. There's already a provision there providing for the structure of what we have now, the two entity system. It's already provided there. It created for this independent entity to be independent from the government and the electric uh, the power participants. So it also provided for the creation of the WESM rules to be governed by the governing body. So sa implementing rules, it established the requisites for this independent entity that will operate the market eventually, and that became IMOP. But that
Mm.
leaves us to this provision in the EPIRA that provides for the creation also of a governing body who will um, take charge of the implementation of the WESM rules. And this is where we come in. Because if you look at it, again, the principle of the self-regulating mechanism, the market operator
Mm.
cannot audit itself, diba?
Yeah, that's right.
So parang it makes sense that there's going to be this other entity who is to take charge of the governance function naman, apart from the market
Mm.
operator or the one operating the WESM. So I guess yeah. So the EPIRA already provides for the basis for having this two entity system.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense, Attorney Andy. Attorney Hazel, let me get to you. As far as the ECHO is concerned, you're in charge of the enforcement and compliance of all the market participants. And when we talk about market participants, we're talking about the different huge companies who are involved in the power industry, right? We have the Meralcos, we
Yes.
have the Boitis, the San Miguels, who are big players. Obviously, the government regulatory body is the ERC, and so does PEMC have also the authority to actually check on the activities of the participants, just so they're following the market rules uh, and everything that's part of being
Uh,
a participant?
yes, Ron, because as mentioned by Attorney Andy, we are promoting actually the self-governance in the WSM. So when we say self-governance, we ensure that all the policies that are formulated are fully enforced and monitored by the by the same industry. So in the case of WESM, we have the Enforcement and Compliance Office. So um, the authority actually is based on that principle of self-governance, because we know our own rules, we formulate our own rules. The decisions are being made and implemented through our PEM Board of Directors, and we want to ensure that these stakeholders, like the big ones, the big power companies, or even other sectors of the in the industry, they are made accountable for their respective participation in the market. So we do not actually entrust it, or we do not expect other entities. Like for example, the ERC has its own bounds and the authority to investigate different sectors in the industry. But for purposes of protecting the electricity market itself, the spot market, we have to make sure that our own rules
Mm.
are fully implemented. That's why it's we this is in keeping with still with the principle of self governance.
Going to the Supreme Court ruling, Attorney Andy, I think this is the most interesting thing about what went on the last couple of weeks, is that they came up with a resolution. So, can you tell us a little bit about this? Because I think this was between the uh, PISAM,
Song, yeah.
just versus the ERC and PEMC.
And us,
First,
yeah.
yeah, and us, can you tell them, is it okay that if we talk about this, since this is already done, they've
Yes, this
already
is going to be published anyway, so
okay.
it's okay to talk about it. This is a Supreme Court decision that was promulgated last April 17
Mm,
this year. So this was decided after almost 14 years since it was filed with the Supreme
right.
Court. But basically, the issue here kasi is that memorandum of agreement and the protocol between ERC and PEMC. So
Mm,
this protocol provides for the procedures by which ERC and PEMC would conduct investigations. So it kind of delineates their respective authorities in instances of breach of the WESM rules and our market manuals, and the procedure for cases involving anti-competitive behavior and the resolution of disputes. So ito yung dispute resolution natin in the WESM. So this protocol actually provides for how the ERC and PEMC would deal with the cases, so procedures. So, Pisang was basically questioning the validity of this, saying there's undue delegation of ERC, which they believe is the only regulatory agency that should be doing all the investigations for violations of the WESM rules and all other
mm,
cases governing the WESM. No? So they filed a petition. This is a petition for prohibition. So
mm,
basically, it's asking the court to make PEMC stop from conducting the investigations and
right.
allegedly usurping the power of ERC. So the Court of Appeals dismissed that petition. So it went up to the Supreme Court. So here goes the Supreme Court after way back 2008 pa pala to, by the way. So here comes the Supreme Court this year affirming naman the Court of Appeals decision, and also upholding the validity of that MOA, Memorandum of Agreement and Protocol. But what's interesting here kasi this is the first time that a Supreme Court that the Supreme Court came up with a ruling that focuses on PEMC's function as the governing body
Mm,
or the
mm,
governance
mm,
arm of the WESM.
mm,
The most, if not all, of the Supreme Court cases that we have deal with the 2013 price hike. They talk about the market operations, but rarely does a Supreme Court decision focus on PEMC's role talaga as the governance arm of
mm,
the WESM. So nakakatuwa siya kasi it validates what we do now, our function now, our role now after transition. So just highlights of the Supreme Court decision. No? So number one, it
mm,
said that the power to investigate violations of the rules is concurrently exercised. Now, concurrently
mm,
exercised meaning it's not just the ERC that can conduct the investigations and sanction breaches of the rules. So while it is provided now in the EPIRA that this is a key function of the ERC, it does not mandate the ERC to perform this responsibility by itself. So by saying that, this function can validly be exercised also by PEMC concurrently now with the ERC. And then the second most important thing or the highlight of that decision is that the Supreme Court said that with the way PEMC performs its responsibility, it's not just a delegation by the ERC. PEMC's authority though directly and actually emanates directly from the EPIRA and its IRR. So that's a very interesting statement. So it provided for yung basis ng creation ng PEMC. The Supreme Court said that when the EPIRA gave the task to the DOE to establish this whole mechanism, the WESM, and formulate the rules, sama dun yung it empowered daw the DOE together with the industry participants to develop the governance structure of the WESM. And this is where we come in. This governance structure that is provided for in the EPIRA, in turn, empowered PEMC. When we were designated as the AGMO, we were also empowered to investigate the breaches, provide adequate sanctions, and act accordingly to ensure that the members comply with them. So in short, the Supreme Court was saying in its interpretation of the EPIRA that our power and authority to govern the WESM actually is already provided there. So there was no undue delegation. There was no issue with the protocol with the ERC because the EPIRA also provided for the key functions of the ERC, and that's to act against abuse of market power and sanction breaches for violations of the rules. So yeah, that's very interesting. Nakakatawa. Kasi yun nga, this is one of the few that really focuses on and highlights our function as a governance arm.
So the questions, Attorney Andy, regarding I guess there have been very influential people who've questioned the role of PEMC, diba, before, and now this actually puts the question to rest because of the fact that the Supreme Court already said that that's the role of PEMC. They're functioning with the ERC as far as the governance is concerned, or investigations are concerned. We can actually do that if we think they're erring participants or anybody from the WESM who are part of the market. If they're doing anything that is not legal, we can always investigate. So that answers the case as far as the PESAM is concerned. By the way, if people are not familiar with PESAM, that's another government agency. Is it under the DOE, Attorney Hazel? PESAM is they're the ones
Yes,
in
it's
charge of
also yes, that's correct. They're also being regulated by both by ERC and also by the Department of Energy in terms of policy decisions of this.
Yeah, basically they're the ones who are disposing of the government assets, right? As far as
Yes,
the owned by the government, the power assets that the government owns. They're the ones who have been disposing of them, privatizing all of them, selling them to different different businesses.
the private
So
sectors. Yeah.
Yeah,
to the private
it's a
sector.
GOCC. Yeah. Mhm.
Now, they filed a case against us because we were looking into or investigating them, and they said that that's not our job. That's tama ba, Attorney? Yun yung ano doon, yung
Yeah, but the Supreme Court kasi resolves legal issues, so more than that, more than the private aspect of this case, the Supreme Court focused on giving a resolution on the legal issue. That is the validity of the MOA and the protocol between ERC. So Yeah, yun yung focus. And that interpretation pala of the Supreme Court is final, no? So when it is the Supreme Court that decides on the
Yes.
interpretation of the law, that's binding and final and binding among the parties.
I guess my question also, Attorney Andy, this definitely provides a resolution to the idea that PEMC, what PEMC's role is as far as governance is concerned. But that also answers the question as to if answers the question if I don't know, but there have been former heads of certain agencies who've contested or who actually who are insisting that C is a GOCC. But this also and also puts a stop to that, ano, diba? That contention that PEMC is a GOCC in a way.
Well, well, yes. Although that's not the main issue, no. In that case, maybe in the
Yes.
form of what we call an obiter or parang in passing this was decided. But the whole idea of it, you can you can get the whole idea from the decision. When again when the Supreme Court said that the power of PEMC comes from the EPIRA and the IRR itself as a governance arm of the WESM. It provided for well this idea of having a self governing body, and that's opposite, no, the opposite yung pag sinabing self-governing body, that's supposed to be independent from the government, diba? Or so yun yung opposite ng thinking that PEMC is a GOCC. So again, by the Supreme Court actually affirmed that we're a private there, private corporation there, private non-stock, non-profit corporation, and we were tasked as the autonomous group market operator to administer and implement the WESM and formulate the rules. And it empowered the DOE together with the industry participants to develop na this governance structure. So it provided for this whole self-regulatory and self-governing structure of the WESM. So I think in saying that, the Supreme Court kind of gave light to this whole issue on us being a GOCC.
Attorney Hazel, why is it an advantage if we weren't declared as a GOCC? um, is it important that is established that we are not a
Uh,
GOCC?
yes, it's important because when you are a GOCC, you know that we are governed by certain rules. Your certain rules that would limit the execution of things like, for example, in the case of the creation of the independent electricity market operation before, which is initiated also by the PEMC in its study of the independent market operator. If you're a GOCC, actually you are not allowed to create such a private corporation. So things like that, among other things, and also the standardization of the compensation and the benefits, we will be bound by the rules that govern the GOCC. So those are the
Mm.
things would, to a certain extent, would limit the capability of PMC in executing the governance functions. So it's really important for us to to have the what do you call this, the right semblance naman when we execute things. Kasi if you execute things and you are given that impression that you're a government, or you're not supposed to do that because you're a GOCC, you're not allowed to do this under for example, like yung mga GOCC kasi they are governed by some charters. Like us, we don't have, because we are registered with the Security and Exchange Commission, just like any other private entities. So may mga ganong limitations that we have to consider when we carry out our functions as governance arm.
That's good to know. So finally, Attorney Andy, moving forward, what do we expect, and what should people know? What is the advantage of having a fully functional PEMC as far as the electricity is concerned, power generation is concerned, because of course the concern from most people who would be probably watching this is that ano ba, what does this have to do with me as far as power rates are concerned and what I'm paying for every day, every month, to a Meralco or to any power generator or distributor in our locale. Uh, what are the ramifications of this, do you think?
Um, well, for one, we have to continue what we're doing, uh, what we do best, and of course, continue to fulfill our mandate. With regard to the Supreme Court decision, well, we have ways forward to maybe put ourselves out there as try to establish more the identity of PEMC being the governance arm of the WESM. So we're going to maybe amend, if necessary, uh, our existing protocols with, let's say, the ERC and the Philippine Competition Commission in terms of coordination efforts to guard against anti-competitive behavior in the market. So, of course, it's going to be beneficial for everyone in the industry, our consumers, and also our consumers. And we're going to work out some maybe protocols or procedures to ensure that major players in the industry are conforming or complying, of course, with their obligations under the WESM rules. That includes our system operator and our market operator. So we're going to be, I think, I should say bolder, no, in enforcing our governance activities, such as maybe the conduct of audit, setting of performance standards for our players in the industry, and of course, strengthen our coordination efforts or activities, such as maybe fact-finding investigations related to yun nga, anti-competitive behavior. No? So I guess we will continue to protect competition within the market, guard against work together with our regulatory agencies and of course the DOE in terms of maybe trying to see if there's something that we need to change in our Western rules or continuous naman siya. It's our Western rules are continuously evolving. So our rules change committee is there to discuss and study proposals by all proponents to see how we can improve and change our Western rules to meet the current needs of the industry, the market, address the needs of the market operations and the whole of WESM. So everything within the scope of our authority, we'll continue doing as we do well. And let's see Attorney Hazel as the head of course, our Enforcement and Compliance Office. And baka you'd also like to tell them, Attorney Hazel, about the accomplishment of our
Yeah.
Enforcement and Compliance Department with
So,
regard to yeah.
oh, very, very tiny ito because as we know, we have concluded it's a milestone for PEMC, especially for ECO, to conclude all the pending cases which have been there for a long time. So, I just want to add lang Ron dun sa sinabi ni Attorney Andy kanina about this ETSI ruling. Kasi for me, it's really a landmark for PEMC because na-mention mo rin kanina, the ruling put whatever uncertainty to an end, especially in terms of the role of PEMC in governing the market. So for a long time, this role of PEMC in investigating the possible violations was considered by some of the affected stakeholders, yung mga ini-investigate natin, they find it quite tricky or puzzling because of the fine line demarcation between the authorities of ERC and PEMC. So, as far as PEMC's position about self-governance, yun nga, sabi ni attorney, nakakatuwa siya because as far as that position is concerned, that ruling of the Supreme Court has already set seal on it. So,
Hmm.
parang for me, it's very well PEMC and to ECO. It even inspires us to mag-investigate pa ng mas maayos. Of course, not this should not be taken adversely by our WESM members. We are partner in compliance, but we just want to make sure that rules are really implemented. And this is a really a good start for us to, mawala na yung mga doubts natin kung ano ba talaga tayo, kailangan ba natin gawin to, or are we really
Yeah.
authorized to do this? So, yon, thank you. At least may ganitong ruling na.
Okay, with that, Attorney Hazel, I just want to say that it's a pleasure having this conversation with the two of you. You inspire a lot of us here who, at one point, wanted to be lawyers. uh,
Thank
you
you.
give the profession a good name. Uh, so any of the kids out there now who are watching, if you want to be a lawyer, these are the two that you should emulate: Attorney Hazel and Attorney Andy of PEMC, of the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation. So thank you, Attorney Andy, Attorney Hazel. Looking forward to seeing you again next week at the office. Thank you for this conversation. I hope our audience were able to pick up something from this podcast, the initial podcast of Know Your Power. That's it. Know Your Power.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
watching. Please
Thank
share
you, Ron.
this video to your friends, your family, so they can understand the power industry a lot better with the conversations that we have in Know Your Power. See you guys next time. Bye.